In the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. Dear Master 2 students, here is your teacher Mega Afaf, your teacher of stylistics. In the first course, we are going to clarify what do we mean by stylistics as a discipline and as a subject within stylistics. For this, we have to start by knowing what do we mean by style, and then what is style, and finally we end by the main representative figures of stylistics. So as far as style is concerned, because stylistics first is derived from the word style. Style, away from language, from style of language, from style in literature. In life, when we say style of dress, it means a manner, a way of dressing. Style of behavior, it means a manner of behaving. Style of thought, it means a way of thought, a way of seeing things. Now, as far as language is concerned, here some scholars define style as follows, like Geoffrey Rich, Short, Halliday, Nash, Widdowson, Goodman agree on the view that style refers to the different stylistic functions out of the stylistic and linguistic choices that are chosen from the grammatical dictionary phonetic store of language. So here the key word here is the linguistic choices. The linguistic choices that we take from the store of the language. So language is the store of what? Store of grammar, store of dictionary, means vocabulary, lexis, store of phonetic, phonology, etc. The writer is going to make his choice, linguistic choice. That means he's going to take from the grammar of the language, that the grammar, the dictionary, the phonetic, etc., to build his own text. And in this way, he is making his own particular style. Oman in Ghazala characterizes style as being a way of writing. So shortly and simply, it is a way of writing. It means when I say style of a writer, it means the way how the writer writes. And writers differ in their style of writing. And we even see with the same author, with the same writer, there are different styles. Sometimes we see different styles, always or sometimes within the same writer. It's a way of writing. Now, moving to stylistics. Basically, the first thing you have to put in your mind, stylistics is the study of style in language. Stylistics is the study of style in language. There is a basic view again. It focuses on the way in which language varies. So there is here language variety. What does mean language variety? That means language is going to change. The use of language is going to change according to the factor of context, the purpose, the author, the participants, and the period of time. All these are going to create an influence on the text. And as a result, we come up with a particular style of writing. That means that this style is going to be different from one context to another context. Is going to be different from the purpose is going to affect the style. The author is going to affect the style. The way this author writes is different from the way another author writes. Period of time also affects the style used in language. So stylistics is going to study style in language and at the same time it's going to take into consideration the context, the effect of context in this style. That means the context of the purpose. The purpose is going to define a particular context. The purpose is going to define a particular style. The author, the audience, the period of time. And this one we are going to see more in details. These are just basic information. Here there is another definition provided by Chapman about stylistics. He says that stylistics is defined as the linguistic study of different styles. Now there is something here new, is the linguistic study. We have seen earlier that is, it is the study of style. Basically, stylistics, it studies the style. 2, it studies the effect of the context on the style, how the purpose, the author, the period of time, all this. And 3, how is it going to study the style? What are the tools? What is the theory followed in stylistics? It is the linguistics. The tools, the methods, approaches of linguistics are going to be applied for the study of different styles. Therefore, according to Chapman, style is the product of social situations, that is, people adopt a particular register, that is a form of language, according to the situation. The situation can be legal, it can be religious, it can be educational, it can be scientific, economic, etc. So the variety of the language according to the situation is called a register. That is, the language, for example, that I use at home, the way how I address my children is different from the way how I address my parents. The language I use in addressing or talking with my students is different from the way how I talk with my colleagues. This is register. It means that the register changes from one situation into another situation, school or university, at home, in court. So this is register. It means the form of language is called the register. It changes according to the situation. So in legal, in the court, the language of the judge, of the lawyers, etc. In the religious context, we have got a different register, educational, scientific, or economic. Ghazala here is providing another definition to stylistics. Stylistics is defined on the basis of the different linguistic choices which are performed by the writer in his text. So here there is a focus on the linguistic choices. Means why does the writer uses this linguistic choice, the level of grammar or vocabulary or phonetics, phonology, etc., instead of other grammar, vocabulary, etc. And this use, whether it is consciously or unconsciously, from the general store of the language, as we have explained earlier. For short, stylistics is an approach to the analysis of literary texts using linguistic description. Here, short is referring to one of the types of stylistics, namely literary stylistics. We are going to deal with types of stylistics in the following courses, but now just the focus here is to see how in all types of stylistics there is always a reference, there is always the use of the linguistic theory, because through the linguistic theory I'm going to describe my text. So stylistics is thus concerned with relating linguistic fact, that is this linguistic description that we come up with, to meaning. And here that means after we finish the linguistic description, the analysis of this text using linguistic theory, we move to another level of analysis, which is the interpretation of this text. Means what is the message conveyed behind this linguistic description in an explicit way as possible. So far, we have been dealing with a gradation in the definition of stylistics, starting from considering stylistics as the study of style, then studying style and with the consideration that of the language varies according to context. Then we said that we use the analysis through, or we analyze the text using linguistic theory. And then what do we particularly analyze in a text? We analyze a stylistic element. So what is a stylistic element? So in order to understand what is a stylistic element, first we start with basically what do we mean by the linguistic element or the linguistic feature. The linguistic element is any element of the language, any part of the language. For example, when I write or when I speak, I use words, subject, verbs, pronouns, phonetics, phonology, etc. So these are elements, nouns, adjectives, adverbs, complements. These are elements of the language, and of course through these elements I construct my language, my text. So these are regularly linguistic elements. So here Ghazala defines these two terms, that means linguistic element and stylistic feature, as follows. Linguistic feature, it is any element, any unit or any element from the system of the language, whether it is dictionary, it means vocabulary, lexis, or semiotic, it means words which have references, which have a lot of significance, whether it is grammatical, whether it is phonetic and structural. This is the basic language. It is composed of linguistic elements. Now, and the second type is stylistic feature. The stylistic feature is also a linguistic element, but in the text it is important. It is not any linguistic element, but it is the linguistic element which is considered important in the stylistic analysis. There is something which makes this linguistic element important for the stylization, and it becomes a stylistic element. It becomes a stylistic feature. So that is, it is the linguistic element which the critic considers important in the text. Now, when is this a linguistic element? I consider it as a stylistic feature. There is when it is used in a particular way that attracts the attention of the reader. For example, when I read the poem and I see that the poet has deviated from the rules of the language, this case is called deviation. And this deviation is not because of a lack of or a deficiency in the knowledge of language, no, but it is put in purpose. And here the poet is attracting the attention of the reader, of the stylistician, that there is something is conveyed behind this deviation. Here this deviation is considered as a stylistic feature, especially when this deviation is repeated. Also, another case of a stylistic feature, of course, in the following courses we are going to see more examples of what do we mean by a stylistic feature that we can depict within a text. But for the moment we are just paving the ground for what is the focus of stylistics, that's all. So from this is an example of deviation, or in a case of ambiguity, where we cannot decide about the meaning of a text or a meaning of a sentence or a meaning of a word. And of course this ambiguity is prevailing throughout all the text. It becomes a stylistic feature worth to be studied stylistically. There is parallelism, there is activeness means the active voice. Writer is using just active voice, overuse of active voice. Nouns, there are nouns, there is nouns here. Nouns are used in a particular way, not in the usual way, but used in a way that calls our attention. We are attracted by it. contradiction, there is contradiction, or there is, for example, repetition. For example, when the writer repeats the same element or the same noun, same word, either through its synonyms or through its opposites throughout all the text. Here, this linguistic element becomes a stylistic element, and this is what the stylistician studies. The stylistician studies the stylistic element, the stylistic feature of the text, using or following a linguistic theory. Finally, we end our course with some representative figures of stylistics, like Charles Bailey, who is considered as the grandfather of stylistics. He was followed by Roman Jacobson, Michael Refater, Richard Oman, Geoffrey Leach, Henry Wade Dawson, Roger Fowler, Michael Halliday, Stanley Fish, Ronald Carter, of course, among others. So, my students, this is the end of the first course. It is just a general introduction to the concept. What do we mean by stylistics? Okay, so as a synthesis, we can say that stylistics is a study of style, considering the effect of context on style, using a linguistic theory, and particularly we analyze the linguistic we analyze the stylistic element in the text. That's all for now. See you in the next course. Thank you.